broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Texas.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
Hello and welcome to TNZ Talk for today, Monday, the 7th of March. I am the Z in TNZ. I'm here with my co-host, Tony Tripiano. Tony Tripiano, good morning.
Good morning, sir, and how was your lovely weekend?
Oh, it was just terrific. It was a terrific weekend, filled with Nazis and Donald Trump and debates. But I think
have I told you yet you need a life?
Hey, listen, if I wasn't paying attention, what would we have to talk about? You know?
Well, I'm paying attention.
I'm hooked. I'm hooked on this stuff, and I also spent a good part of the weekend. You're gonna love this, playing with audio, and technology and audio technology and editing software and all kinds of things.
In fact, you and I need to make a date to do that on my end at some point this week. It just gets the whole political atmosphere just continues to get more surreal. Saturday Night Live has got more material than we do, and they've been very good at it, by the way. There isn't a pundit out there that isn't going after Donald Trump, and I understand that he split the contest this weekend, Z, but at the end of the day, he's still polling well in places he shouldn't be. And it's blowing my mind.
Well, and he's polling well with not only places he shouldn't be, but people he shouldn't be. I mean, here in Massachusetts, at the primaries, people actually changed their party because we have a closed primary where you have to vote in the primary along party lines. And people changed their party affiliation to be able to vote for Donald Trump. So that's where we are. And Massachusetts is typically, with the exception of, the vote for Scotty Brown, I've got a truck, is a pretty blue state. So it's a little terrifying right now.
Perplexing. I was telling you off air this past weekend, was talking to a friend, and she asked me, have you decided who you're going to vote for? And at that point, I said, well, have you decided? And she says, oh, yeah. I'm voting for Donald Trump. My jaw hit the floor. And she looked at me funny, and she says, well, let me tell you why. I said, oh, please do. Tell me why. He's not beholden to anybody. He's not taking money from anybody. He's self-financing. I like that. I like that a lot. I said, do you like his ideas? She goes, well, some of his stuff scares me, and he's way too crude. But he's not an establishment guy, and maybe that's what we need. Maybe what we need to move the country forward is someone that doesn't understand politics. Maybe he'll do it differently. So I said, okay, well, we'll accept your premise for just a moment, although I'm not. And let me ask you if you ever thought about this. Have you ever thought that him buying favor is any different than somebody buying his favor? So what do you mean by that? I said, that man contributes millions of dollars to political candidates and to politicians all over the country. You don't think that people are beholden to him? I never thought about that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. See, this is why we pay attention, so we can have conversations like that that actually mean something and make people think. I've run into people. I ran into a kid yesterday. A kid. I mean, I call them kids. 30-year-old, 30 in their 30s. And, he gets out of his car and goes, "Yeah, I suppose you're voting for Hillary Clinton." I go, "Well, I mean, if I had a choice, no. But if she's the Democrat, yeah, of course I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton. It's better than anything else on the other side." And I go, "What about you, Artie?" He goes, "Well, Trump all the way." I'm like, "Really?" And I looked at him and I go, "Haven't you had enough of fascist governments?" And now the inside joke on that is because he grew up in Russia. And, apparently he misses it that much. Likes to hear politicians talking about, joking about killing reporters, political adversaries, upping the torture, stakes, maybe even finding something worse than waterboarding, which is something, Donald Trump has said. And, so here we kind of venture into the area of discussion that you have not wanted to, let's say, is the comparison of Donald Trump to Hitler. And I'll tell you the problem I have with it is Godwin's law, right? You've heard of Godwin's law.
Yes, sir. We've talked about it on air.
Yeah. So for people who are unfamiliar with it, you can look up Godwin's law on Wikipedia, and it's basically the theory of how long it takes for an online discussion to devolve into comparisons to Hitler, the Nazis, which has been going on for a long time, and has. I mean, it happened during the Bush administration. It certainly happened during Obama, with everyone comparing Obama's policies to, including politicians, to Nazis and 1940s Germany, and Obama's just like Hitler, and they were ridiculous. The comparisons got so ridiculous that they were meaningless, right? It got to the point where it was like, "Oh yeah, he's just like Hitler. Oh yeah, Hitler. Ha 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 ha." And I think to now where we have something kind of scary happening, where even the rest of the world is kind of going, "This is really scary," and the comparisons, maybe not to Hitler 1940s Germany, but to Hitler's appeal and to some of the rhetoric that's coming out of Trump, and to how people are reacting to this. I don't know.
There's a lot to get to today. We have a lot of audio, but if you would, I think a good jumping off point is the Trump pledge.
Yeah. Let's play that right now.
Yeah, it's a good place.
Intuit TurboTax.
Go vote. You got it. Okay, wait. Let's do a pledge. Everybody here, who likes me in this room? Okay. I've never done this before. Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will vote on or before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president. Thank you. Now I know.
Now, of course,
I said that was our jumping off point, but tell them why.
Well, so the memes on Twitter and Facebook and everything about this pledge were basically photographs, pictures taken from all different angles at this rally. And people didn't have their right hand up with their elbows bent. They had their right hand right out towards Donald Trump, as did he, in what looked like a Nazi salute, intentional or not. Now, here's the thing. Here are my thoughts on this, is that there tend to be a lot of white supremacists in Donald Trump's crowd. There have actually been known white supremacists kicking and choking and pushing black people out of the rally for no other reason than that they were black. I mean, they weren't protesting, they weren't screaming, they weren't wearing anything. They were black, and they got thrown out. And so, there could have been a few in the crowd that were doing it as a Nazi salute. But I mean, the picture itself is scary. And the thing is that I get really uncomfortable with this conversation because I think drawing comparisons to the most hated person and some of the most disgusting things that have happened in our world's history borders on being unfair. But I can see why this scares people. And, other world leaders and foreign diplomats have been voicing alarm, as Trump's rhetoric continues, and in some cases gets really amped up, that it's a concern to a lot of leaders, in the rest of the world. I mean, there have been complaints from diplomats that, at the very least, include India, South Korea, Japan, Mexico, that have voiced their concerns vocally, and other countries like Britain, Mexico, France, and Canada, and Germany's economic minister branded him a threat to peace and prosperity in an interview that was published this yesterday. So, the rest of the world is kind of looking at this and going, "Oh my God." I mean, comments like ignorant and racist, and that building a wall at the border will stop illegal immigration is completely absurd. And he's playing to the simplest and most ignorant and most hateful in this country, of which there apparently happens to be quite a few.
Well, at least 60-something%. And interestingly, when we look at the new voter that Donald Trump was bringing in, they are the least educated. And remember, he loves the less educated, loves them. And now we know why, because that's what's allowing him to win. But going back to your comments about vitriol and racism, he had actually said something about the President of the United States the other day that was, well, I don't even know if it was borderline racist. Can we play that piece of audio, please?
Yeah.
We have a divided country, folks. We have a terrible president who happens to be African American. There has never been a greater division just about than what we have right now. The hatred, the animosity. I will bring people together. I'm going to bring people together. You watch. We're going to bring people together. We're going to bring our jobs back from China and all of these other countries that have taken our jobs, and Mexico. And we're going to bring people together, folks.
I don't even know
we're we're averaging 400,000 new jobs a month. Now, they may not be the best paying jobs, and they may not be the jobs that we want, many of them. But a lot of people are back to work that under George W. Bush lost their jobs. At one point, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. I actually had a business owner tell me over the weekend that it wouldn't have mattered who was president the last 8 years. We couldn't do any worse, so it's no surprise that, we've created jobs. Would not give credit to Barack Obama. Refused.
What? Why would he? I mean, I don't. I've been trying to dissect the who just when Trump says who just happens to be African American. I don't. I mean, a lot of the the lower level blogs picked up on that. I think for bombastic purposes that it was a racist remark. I think it's a racist remark just in the fact that it had to be said. I don't quite know what he was trying to draw attention to, other than the fact that there are a bunch of racists in his crowds, and that's what he likes to play to. I mean, he throws people out of his events. He calls out people individually. Reporters have gotten beaten up. So I don't know. I mean, what do you have any thoughts on the quote unquote who just happens to be African American?
Well, it's completely racist. He's talking about the country being divided, but we have an African American president. Therefore, that is the reason for the division. I mean, that's he doesn't say it in that way, but doesn't the thought process follow that? I mean,
yeah,
some level, it's not hard to go there. It's not like it's a stretch to consider that as a real possibility. I don't think that I'm really coloring outside the box here.
Yeah, I just the fact I think what's more terrifying than anything in all this is, that he's saying stuff like this, that he probably, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before as to whether or not, he actually believes what he's saying, or if he's just playing to a base, and in which case the base, his voters, his followers, his minions, are a really scary group of people, and that he's fanning that fire is really kind of terrifying, and it's getting to a point. Look, Madeleine Albright too said the rest of the world is just appalled at what's happening here and what's going on, and particularly with this rise of Trump.
But he doesn't care, Z. You're bringing that up like it matters to him, or it should matter to him, and maybe what you're trying to do is make sure that it matters to the voters. Okay, I'll accept that that's what you're trying to do.
Well, but that's the thing; it doesn't.
Well, it does to some, obviously. Here's my problem. Here's my big problem. As I watch, again, all of the cable networks that have any kind of political coverage, and I watch them all, they all talk about how hated Donald Trump is. They all say that he will not be the nominee. They all continue to bash him at every turn, yet he's winning. Now, the question we have to ask ourselves is Ted Cruz beginning to gain some traction? That's the question. And then we'll get on to Marco Rubio and where he's at. So let's move to Ted Cruz for a moment.
Well, hold on just a second. Well, hold on just a second, because what gets me is they bash him consistently, constantly. and even in the debates, his opponents bash him. Yet when they're asked the question of whether or not they'll back him as a nominee, they say yes. They say, and how is that any different than not refuting David Duke, which is what Donald Trump has been accused of by everyone. He doesn't even refute David Duke and the KKK, and he's obviously a hateful guy, and he can't. Well, I understand that, but they're saying that he didn't, and they're playing that up, and then when they're asked, will you back him if he's the presidential nominee? Well, yeah. I mean, no question. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. Of course I will. I mean, I hate what he says. I hate what he stands for. I don't think he should be president. But if he's the nominee, if that's who the people want, yeah, I'm going to back him 100%. I mean, come on. Seriously? Is a pledge that important to the Republican Party that they can't just say, no, I am not. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to see this guy as president. This guy will destroy the country.
Well,
how hard is that to do?
Well, when I was watching Mitt Romney on Chris Wallace's Fox Sunday program yesterday morning, his ongoing Mittens Dog and Pony show is ridiculous. He's made a complete and total ass of himself. Then he insists that he is not going to run for the presidency. It made it clear that he would not run. Chris Wallace asked him if drafted, would he run? And he basically said no, but Chris Wallace says, well, it sounds like you're leaving the door open. And he did not sound like he was leaving the door open. What's the point? I mean, truly, what's the point? They're not winning. They're enraging the Trump supporters, making them more loyal than they ever had been. And if the quote-unquote establishment thought that attacking Trump at from every corner they possibly could was going to have some kind of negative effect, I think we see on Saturday, although Ted Cruz did win 2 states, Donald Trump won 2 bigger states. And heading to the Rust Belt, can you really see Ted Cruz winning in the Rust Belt? Absolutely not. But I'll go back to my question: is Ted Cruz gaining some traction?
Well, he's gaining some traction. I don't know if it's enough. It's enough to win the nomination. I mean, their strategy right now seems to be to not let Donald Trump get a majority of the delegates in order to be able to justify brokering the convention. But the thing is what the plan is and what the rules are is very different from what the perception is, right? Because you have generally an uneducated, uninformed, basically ignorant population that, however the rules are laid out, however this is going to be justified, the perception is going to be that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. No matter how this goes. And
the conversation that you and I had last week about democracy, that we don't have to like Trump, we don't have to like what's happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need to repeat the entire conversation. But if democracy speaks and that democracy says we want Donald Trump, as democracy supposedly spoke and said we want George Bush, I'm talking about the second term, not the first. We have to live with it, don't we? Isn't that what democracy is all about?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the argument. You know, that's always been we're having that argument about the Supreme Court nomination, right? Is the American people need to decide who this nominee is going to be. Well, they did. They reelected Barack Obama by 5 million votes in 2012, right? So, yes. Now, I have a couple clips that I hadn't, you and I hadn't talked about. But they're from a surprising source. Over the weekend, Glenn Beck was on George Stephanopoulos' show, and I want to play this clip because this is where things get interesting, Tony.
All right.
The GOP has one last chance to listen to the people. And the people and I understand it, they're very, very angry because the GOP did not listen the first time around. They didn't listen to the Ron Paul people who are way ahead of the curve, then the Tea Party people, and they rubbed our nose in it. And they are tired, and they have created Donald Trump. The people are speaking clearly, and there's two ways to go: anger and nationalism, which has been done before in history. And you can go for nationalism, you can go for anger.
Trump is Adolf Hitler?
If you look at what's happening with Donald Trump and his playing to the lowest common denominator and to the anger in us, Adolf Hitler, we all look at Adolf Hitler in 1940. We should look at Adolf Hitler in 1929. He was a kind of a funny kind of character that said the things that people were thinking. Where Donald Trump takes it, I have absolutely no idea. But Donald Trump is a dangerous man with the things that he has been saying. Now, the GOP is playing unbelievable games right now, trying to make sure they get their way. And they're trying to go for a brokered convention. I'm against Donald Trump, but I'll tell you one thing. If he gets close enough and the GOP tries to play games, I won't vote for Donald Trump ever, but I will stand with his right because the people have spoken.
So that's an interesting theory, isn't it?
No, it's basically what we just said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't even believe.
Oh my God, we're agreeing with Glenn Beck.
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe that we've gotten to this point. That we've actually gotten to the point where I'm listening to Glenn, who I can't stand. I mean, I can't stand him. And I'm listening to him on Stephanopoulos yesterday, and I'm going, holy crap, this guy's making sense. This actually makes sense. I mean, it's exactly almost what you said, right? Is that we have a democracy, and if the people have spoken, and that leads us. There's another clip I want to play, but first, I mean, I'm kind of sidelining here, but the same thing happened over the weekend on the Democratic side. So Bernie Sanders took Vermont swept Vermont. And Howard Dean, who is a super delegate, and Howard Dean, who former
presidential candidate, governor, etc.
Yeah, of Vermont,
right,
is a super delegate in for Vermont, and he gets a tweet that says your super delegate vote goes to Hillary no matter what ? Way to represent the people. Bernie Sanders will make a great prez in spite of you. This is Howard Dean's response on Twitter. Super delegates don't, quote, represent people, unquote. I'm not elected by anyone. I'll do what I think is right for the country. So basically, this is Howard Dean.
Reread that. Reread that, please.
Super delegates don't represent people. I'm not elected by anyone. I'll do what I think is right for the country. That's Howard Dean's response to why didn't you vote along the electoral lines rather than going completely against what the people in your state voted for?
Well, because superdelegates aren't the Electoral College. They're totally different rules, totally different purposes, totally different identities and definitions. You are not compelled as a superdelegate to vote with anybody but your own conscience.
I understand that. I don't agree with
Do you
it.
think it's unethical? Oh, well, obviously you don't.
Well, Alan Grayson did the complete opposite. He took an online poll of where his superdelegate vote should go, and that's the way he voted, because he's representing the voters.
And that's his right.
So,
I mean, that is, as it is to Howard Dean's right to say and do what he did.
right, but
We don't have to like the rules, but it's the way they're written, and so you have to live with it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but how do these rules come into play in the first place? That's the question, right? And it happened when the rest of us weren't paying attention.
Well, and that could have been any time. Yeah, it was 1984, and I of course have no clue, none, what precipitated that. No idea. I'm not even going to pretend I know, because I don't. One of the things, though, I did want to... Let's just kind of go back a little bit. We were talking about the kind of voters that Donald Trump is bringing to the table and how he loves the uneducated. You had shared with me some audio of Trump supporters. And I think it would be a benefit to this audience to hear what these people had to say because... how do I put this? Some of the responses couldn't be less supportive, yet they're supporting him.
Right, and you're talking about the interview with Trump supporters.
The Trump.
But,
Questioning the Trump supporters, right.
Sure, let's play that.
How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for stopping me.
You're a Trump supporter, right?
Of course I am.
Perfect.
Go Trump.
Go Trump. Good. You're a supporter of Trump, correct?
Absolutely. Take a look at this tie.
Oh, wow. Donald Trump tie. I wanted to read you a couple quotes and kind of get your feelings on them and kind of see how you felt about what he was saying.
Sure.
Anyone who sees and paints a sky green and fields blue ought to be sterilized. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of people that should be sterilized, according to Donald Trump, so sure.
Sterilized.
The sky should be blue.
That's probably true.
Can you read it to me one more time?
Sure. How fortunate for governments, so how good for the governments, that the people they administer, the people they take care of, don't actually think. Don't think.
You look at the Democratic Party and they prove that. That's why I'm voting for Trump.
He's a smart man. I mean, he's got the world by the balls right now. I mean, he has a lot of money. He's very influential because of his money and what he's done with, his empire.
Humanitarianism is the expression of stupidity and cowardice. Kind of makes sense. He supports war and he wants to make sure that we're the strongest country, right?
Yeah, I would guess.
The more economic difficulties increase, the more immigration will be seen as a burden. Do you think that that's a correct assumption? That's what he's going to try and do with immigration?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as our economic system starts improving, we don't have to worry about the immigrants anymore. They'll go away.
Who says I am not under the special protection of God? What do you think about that? Do you think...
I feel like that's okay.
That's okay?
If Trump's an athist, that's okay.
Sure.
It's totally cool.
He's under the protection of God. Good. I do not see why man should not be as cruel as nature. Well, why do you think he comes up with that?
Well, man is the cruelest animal.
I see.
Great liars are also great magicians. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I think that, he's going to lie in any way, probably to, support the country, to keep the country going.
Good.
There'll be good lies, So
you support everything that he's kind of said in this pamphlet here and in these quotes, right?
Of course. Yeah. I'm a Trump fan.
Because Trump, because Trump said it. Do you support these quotes, then? You support Trump?
I support him.
Yeah.
I actually changed them, and they're all quotes from Hitler.
You made this pamphlet and did that? Oh, my God. I'm definitely not down with racism.
Okay, so you're not a Hitler fan. That's good.
No,
it's a good thing. Good thing, not a Hitler fan. These are actually all quotes from Hitler, and I just replaced them in this pamphlet.
I'd say you're lying to me.
They are, though. They're quotes from Hitler. So do you still support Trump?
Yeah. But I don't support Hitler.
Well, but you support these quotes, though, right?
Well, if Donald Trump said him, I'd support him.
Hitler actually did good things. He created the Volkswagen. Folks. It's for the folks.
It's for the folks.
I don't.
Yikes.
I don't support Hitler, but if Donald Trump said the same things that Hitler did, I would support Donald Trump. And here's one that confused me, is that when the economy improves, the immigrants will go away. How exactly does that work in any kind of reality?
It doesn't.
I mean, we have immigrants leaving this country because the economy is so bad that immigrants, we're at a net zero right now with immigration, and a lot of immigrants are returning or going elsewhere because they can't survive here, or at least they were. So, I mean, this is, I mean, Tony, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, do you think this is a good transition into the new rules? The new rule with Bill Maher?
Sure.
I think people need to hear this.
Yeah, let's play it.
And finally, new rule, you can't spend the first half of a debate bitching about how immigrants are ruining the country, and the second half on the uplifting stories of your immigrant parents. The Republicans all talk about building walls and deportations and making people learn English. And then John Kasich. My grandmother was an immigrant who could barely speak English. Ted Cruz. My father was an immigrant from Cuba who didn't speak English. Marco Rubio. My parents arrived with no money, barely speaking English. And, of course, Donald Trump. My father was an orangutan from Borneo who didn't speak any English at all. Yeah, it's pretty funny how Cruz and Rubio can wax nostalgic about their dishwasher father and hotel maid mom, and in the next breath tell you who they want to kick out of the country, maids and dishwashers. And I must say this puzzles me because while Republicans generally do lack the empathy gene, that is, the ability to see other people suffer and then make the complicated leap to, I wonder if that hurts. There is an exception to this. They do often get on the humane side of an issue when it hits them right in their own home. For example, Dick Cheney is so conservative he got an artificial heart just to make sure he never felt sorry for anyone. But he's a big supporter of gay marriage because he has a gay daughter and he needs to stay on her good side in case he needs a kidney. Likewise, Jeb Bush has been very compassionate about Mexican immigrants because he married one. One of the good ones, I'm sure. Jeb also had a fairly enlightened drug policy because his daughter had a serious problem with cocaine. Although on the bright side, at least someone in that family is high energy. But that is the pattern. Jeb is a lockstep conservative, but enlightened on Mexicans because of the wife, and cool about drugs because of the daughter. And, of course, a strong supporter of special needs education because of his brother. Always scolds. Or take the abortion issue. Dan Quayle was 100% pro-life. And then he was asked what he would do if his own daughter got pregnant, and he said, quote, I would counsel her and talk to her and support her on whatever decision she made. Oh, I see. Your daughter gets a choice. Unwanted children are for strangers. You know, Lady Gaga sang a song at the Oscars Sunday called Till It Happens to You. It's like that. It has to happen to them. It explains why John McCain supports every form of war ever invented, and some he just fantasizes about in the shower. But torture? No. Because he was tortured by Sarah Palin. It explains why Ronald Reagan suddenly cared about AIDS only after it struck his friend Rock Hudson, and why Nancy Reagan got religion on stem cell research after Ronnie got Alzheimer's. And it explains why Newt Gingrich gave up hunting after he married an owl.
Don't look at me in the back.
On so many issues, you can only get Republican support if it touched one of their own, which is not good news for the environment. I've heard the question many times, when will Republicans stop denying climate change? I'll tell you when. When one of them can be convinced they personally suffered from it. And if the gods of irony are listening, please make this happen. The oceans are dying, and all the fish in them are disappearing, which is why starving sharks swim closer to the shore now and bite more people. And I'm sorry, but one of those people has to be Chris Christie. Let him lose one of the arms he uses to shovel food into his mouth, and maybe he will realize we should do something about our dying oceans. John Kasich wants a moratorium on all regulations. Okay, but then please let there be some kind of mix-up with the pipes, and the only water John Kasich gets to drink from now on is from Flint, Michigan. Let James Inhofe be mauled by a disoriented polar bear. Let Rush Limbaugh get attacked by a swarm of dying bees, and the Koch brothers be swallowed up by a fracking-induced earthquake. And to slap the global warming denial out of Marco Rubio, whose own state of Florida is one of the most likely places to be inundated by rising oceans, his own home must get flooded, and Marco must be swept out to sea and washed up all the way back to Cuba, where we will find out that Marco Rubio really is Elian Gonzalez.
That was a little long,
great.
but yeah.
No, I mean, it was well worth it. Well worth it.
It was well worth it. I mean, you know, this is something that I've been saying, you've been saying, you know, we've all been saying for a really long time, is that, you know, until it happens to you, right? It's like how, and, you know, and there's been, you know, apparent scientific proof that, they are, kind of missing this empathy gene. And every time they talk about this kind of stuff, and every time that, you know, we're anti-abortion, but we're going to cut food stamps and welfare and SNAP programs and funding to education and all of that, you know, I look at this and I think to myself, well, yeah, because you're a millionaire and you can afford to send your kid to private school, and who cares, right? Who cares? Everyone should work as hard as you did when you inherited your, you know, $300 million from your dad, who actually did all the work. And, you know, or, you know, like Mitch McConnell, right? I mean, his salary is $175,000 a year, yet he's worth $24 million, right? And how did that happen? Oh, it was hard work. Yeah.
It was insider trading.
Yeah, exactly.
And so many members of Congress have gotten wealthy off of insider trading. Hey, listen, I was reading over the weekend, as were you, and the Inside the Beltway publication, The Hill, came up with a list of potential VP candidates for Donald Trump. Would you like to hear the names?
I would very much like to hear the names.
Number one, won't surprise you, Chris Christie. It says Christie would add executive experience to the ticket, and he echoes Trump's criticisms of Washington. A counterpoint is that he also seems like a carbon copy of Trump. Both are outspoken East Coasters who have been described as bullies. I just don't see that happening. Next, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, of course, is the governor of South Carolina, was held for the handling of the Confederate flag controversy. She also has executive experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would agree, she is a rising star in the Republican Party. I just can't see her ever saying yes to Donald Trump. Susana Martinez is another lawmaker who is regularly floated as a potential White House running mate. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce endorsed Martinez as a vice presidential candidate. She is the New Mexico governor and has endorsed Rubio's campaign and hasn't said whether or not she'd vote for Trump if he wins the nomination. Next on the list, you're going to love this one, Scott Brown. Earlier this year, Trump floated Brown as a running mate, saying he'd make a very good vice president. The former Massachusetts senator who unsuccessfully ran for the Senate in New Hampshire 2 years ago endorsed Trump in February. Next on the list, Marsha Blackburn, who was the leading House panel on the committee investigating Planned Parenthood. Listen to this analysis. She could help boost Trump's standing among Republicans who worry the businessman isn't a true conservative. She could also help Trump reach out to female voters. Not sure what kind of female voters she would help him reach out to, but that's the short list as of now.
Yeah, and Blackburn's actually nuttier than Palin could even aspire to be. I mean, I see only one choice in any of those. Let's just imagine that those are his only choices. Christie he'd never pick because Christie has more experience than him and is smarter than him, and Trump would never allow his ego to do that. Nikki Haley is of Indian descent, Indian meaning India. Her parents are immigrants, so that wouldn't go over well with his base. Martinez has a Spanish last name, so that's not going to work. And Blackburn, along with Nikki Haley, are women, so you can forget about that. So really his only choice there is Scott Brown, who is infinitely more stupid than Donald Trump. And he'd be a good sideline to Trump's wife, because both his wife and Scott Brown have posed nude for magazines. So, you want to talk about the first family being a joke, along with their VP. We have our work cut out for us on this. I mean, this is really has gone to. I try to look at this from the outside, and that whole usual analogy of what would aliens think if they landed here and saw this, what the rest of the world is looking at and seeing, how a perfectly reasonable person views what's going on here objectively, and there's no explaining this, Tony. And they're in for just a major reckoning and the implosion and fracturing of the GOP at this point, where I don't see that there's any recovering from it. And like I said earlier, it's the perception. The perception matters more than the rules and the laws and the way things are set up. And, we know all the conspiracies of how things are set up and how things are run in this country. But people still do have some kind of hope and a perception of what this country's about. And to have that taken away and eradicated little by little, which is what the GOP is suggesting that they do, is going to be a very dangerous prospect on the part of the Republican establishment if they choose to do an end run around what the majority of the people in their party seem to want. And so that leads me to my second clip on Glenn Beck, which is very short. It's about 40 seconds long. Let me play that real quick.
for a third option if Trump gets the nomination.
Yes, but not the options of the party playing politics to break us apart at the convention. That leads to civil war on the floor, and quite honestly, it could lead to civil war in the country. You cannot lie to people, play with their feelings. People actually believe in something, and that's what the GOP has forgotten. They believe in themselves, they believe in their own power, and they are using man to be able to entrench themselves in that power and in that profit. You cannot continue to disenfranchise people and play with their emotions.
Glenn Beck, thanks for joining us this morning.
Again, I can't believe that I'm actually agreeing with Glenn Beck. I mean, I might have to lay down after this because... You know, but the guy actually, for once, I mean, this is stuff that he's been saying for a while, too, that sounded really conspiratorial. And, you know, people poo-pooed it and laughed at him. I laughed at him. I joked about Glenn Beck all the time. And, you know, I can't believe he said that. And now I'm actually listening to this guy and I'm going, yeah, he's actually, he's right on. And they're playing a very they're playing a dangerous game and a scary one at that.
No question. Before we get to our conversation with Marco Rubio, let's lighten things up again a bit. You've got some audio from Saturday Night Live over the weekend. Why don't you play a couple of those pieces of audio, because there's some good stuff there.
Okay, let's listen to their version of Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump was endorsed by Governor Chris Christie and dominated Super Tuesday. Here's what he had to say at his celebratory press conference.
What a great, great night. I really am running the best campaign, aren't I? The media's saying they haven't seen anything like this, not since Germany in the 1930s. I mean, everyone loves me. Racist, ugly racist, people who didn't even know they were racist, people whose eyes are like this. And this guy loves me, don't you? Wait, what's that? Get him out. As I was saying, everyone loves me. I even got this fat piece of crap behind me now. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Please, sir, may I have another?
I mean, he really is a sad, desperate little potato back there, aren't you, Chris?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Please, sir, may I have another?
No. Go get on a plane. Go home.
Okay, you got it.
Also, P.S. America, I have a great, big, huge dick.
All right, I'm just going to play the Mitt Romney one, and then we'll talk about Rubio. Okay, Tony?
2012
Absolutely.
presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Hello, Governor.
Hello, Jake. Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me. Now, that's right, America, I'm back. You didn't ask for it, but you got it.
Now, Governor, why have you decided to speak out against Donald Trump?
Well, Jake, for the last 9 months, I've sat down and watched Donald Trump say something every day that was either racist or sexist. And we in the GOP, the party of the great Ronald Reagan, we do not say racist and sexist things. We imply them subtly over decades and decades of policy. So I felt that I had to take matters into my own tanned, well-manicured hands and follow the advice of my favorite rapster, Macklemore. That's right. And I chose to put Donald Trump on blast. America, he's a fool.
4 years ago, he endorsed you for president.
Like I said, he's a fool. He's a fraud. He's a scam. He's a what? He's a what? He's a flim-flam man. Now, if you vote for Donald Trump, and I hate to use a curse word on television, but if you vote for him, you're a sucker. Oh, forgive me, Joseph Smith.
Oh. Wow, you are pretty riled up.
Yeah, gosh darn right I am. And that's why on last Thursday, I rolled up my $1,000 monogram sleeves. I took a couple shots of non-alcoholic Kahlua. I did 10 women's push-ups, and then I went out there, and I gave the most aggressive, passionate, well-measured anti-Trump speech I could.
And do you think your speech changed the minds of any Trump supporters?
I do not.
Do you think any Trump supporters even watched?
Not on purpose, no.
Do you think your speech hurt Trump at all?
Honestly, I would assume it probably helped him.
All right, is there anything you would like to say directly to Donald Trump?
Yes, there is. Donald, you're duplicitous, you're reckless, and if you become the Republican nominee, know this: I would make a great vice president.
Yeah, truth in comedy, right?
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I hope people enjoyed that. Very quickly, we've only got a handful of minutes left, and Joe Scarborough wrote an op-ed in this morning's Washington Post. The headline, Marco Rubio gets massacred, talking about, of course, the result on Saturday. Puerto Rico aside, which doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Say what you will about Joe Scarborough. Everybody has an opinion, and many of them are not very favorable, but he's right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see 74% in Puerto Rico though, Tony. I mean, he did get 74% of the votes in Puerto Rico, so he's still in here. He's still in the race, according to Rubio.
Him. Yeah, according to him. Basically, what Joe Scarborough said in his op-ed was that the people that are consulting Marco should tell him to quit, to run for re-election for his Senate seat, which it's probably too late for him to do at this point, and to try to salvage whatever he may have left of his political career. I believe that he will be less than an asterisk in political history. And a year from now, when we talk about who ran, in fact, I dare people to name 3 GOP primary candidates from 4 years ago. But 4 years from now, when we ask that question, people won't even remember Marco Rubio's name.
Well, but I think the establishment still wants him in, right? Because strategically, he's still taking delegates and votes away from Trump. And what they need to do, if they want this strategy to be successful, is to make sure that Trump doesn't get the majority of the delegates. And if any of them drop out, including Kasich, if any of them drop out, the speculation from the GOP is that those delegate votes go to Trump and he gets closer to a majority win and a nomination. So the longer the longer these guys can stay in, the less of a chance Trump has of getting a majority of delegates.
All right. So when Trump wins Michigan tomorrow and he wins Mississippi tomorrow, and these are not winner-take-all. Actually, Michigan is a winner-take-all state. Then we'll have to see. Then we'll have to see what happens. Right now, Trump is polling 41%, Cruz 22%, Kasich 17% in Michigan. Hillary Clinton is beating the bejesus out of Bernie Sanders in Michigan. And we're going to talk a lot more about Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders on tomorrow's program. But see, we are out of time. So if you would be so kind as to let people know where they can get more information on the show, I'd appreciate it.
I'm going to do that. They can go to tandztalk.com. You'll get all of our information, ways to support us, iTunes links, Android links, links to our Facebook and Twitter feeds, and all the information you've ever wanted to know, and even some you probably don't. Again, that's tandztalk.com. And we want to thank Blog Talk USA for having us on the network. And Tony?
Simple. When it comes to Nancy Reagan, just say no. Have a great day, Z. We'll do this again tomorrow. And as always, folks, we ask that you be well.